I may in fact have lost my mind. I might be nuts, crazy. Okay, I'm not myself. I'm insane. Don't go away. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Fat Guy Productions. I am Paul, coming to you as always from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada. And yeah, I think I have lost my marbles. Going cuckoo, wacko, nutso. Man, what could be more crazy than doing the Porsche 917 that I did in my last Diecast video? Following it up with another Porsche. Oh yes, you heard me right. Today's video, we're going to be doing another Porsche, and that is not all. It's another Flying Colors video. Holy cow, what is wrong with me? I am off my rocker, but be that as it may, that's what we're doing today. Let's get to work. So indeed, I am doing another Porsche. Hot off the heels of the Porsche 917, I'm doing this 911. And more surprisingly is the fact that it's a Hot Wheels Flying Colors car. And frankly, I don't like the Flying Colors cars. But I do like the Porsche 911, and so let's give this a whirl. Okay, so now it's time to go ahead and do all the usual stuff. We got to get the car apart, and for that, we're going to turn to the Vix Bits and shielded drilling. Now listen, if you're not using Vix Bits, you are missing out. The Vix Bits help you drill the post out perfectly centered every time. They're fantastic, but even better still, after you get the car apart, they're wonderful for treating the end of the post. They get rid of all of the burrs. They dimple it dead center and make it ready to drill out. These things are fantastic. If you want a set, you can get them by visiting my Amazon page at www.amazon.com/shop/Paul Udelis. All right, get yourself some Vix Bits. You'll thank me. So the casting has a metal base and an interior, which is the unusual part because it's all glass. It's like a smoked glass piece that the interior and the glass are all one thing. And not only is it all one thing, it's a different kind of plastic, so it doesn't break really easy. And so it's going to be a nice piece to work with, but it is a little bit unusual. And then, of course, we have the body. Here, as I mentioned, I'm using the Vix Bits to clean up the end of the post. And then we can go ahead and drill. Now, much like the 917, the Porsche 911 Hot Wheels also has really, really small posts. And so you really kind of need to be wired tight for this, okay? Take your time, pay attention, make sure your bit is centered in the post, and just go slow, and it'll be fine, but just beware, they're pretty small posts and a little bit of a challenge to drill out. So, not too long ago, you saw me snap one of my taps, and it's quite possible I had forgotten to put some oil in there before I did it, and that's a bad thing. So, a couple tips on tapping: make sure that you put some oil in the drilled out hole. Make sure you don't use excessive force. You know, if it starts to bind and stop, back it out, try and go in some more if you need to, or add more oil, or just stop at that point. If you remember back, I was super lucky that there was just enough of the bit sticking out that I was able to get a hold of it with some pliers and screw it out. Otherwise, you really killed your casting. So, take your time and do this step right. And no, I still don't have any warm liquid goo, so all we have here is some boring orange citrus strip. It breaks my heart. It seriously does. Every time I drop a casting into this garbage, It breaks my heart that we don't have the warm liquid goo. All right, anyhow, so I did drop it in. You can see how thick and viscous this stuff is. The car just doesn't sink for like days. It's terrible. Anyhow, I got the body in there. We'll set it aside. In just a few hours, the paint will be ready to come off. Okay, so while we're letting the body soak in the stripper, we're going to turn our attention to the base, and it has a little bit of tarnish on it. So I've gotten out my little handy Tupperware jar, and we'll place the base in here, and then I'm going to reach for the magic, the Flitz Calcium Rust and Lime. A couple spritz all over the base, put the cover on because this stuff is stinky, and let it sit for just a few minutes, and it will take care of all of your problems. Then we can come back later after we wash it and we'll brush it out. And speaking of Flitz, now it is time for the Flitz polish. We've got our little interior glass piece and a little dab of Flitz on the windows and my cotton bud, and we can just go ahead and polish these things up. After I've got them nice and shiny, we'll just buff them out with my blue shop cloth, and they're going to look fantastic. Now, a lot of times the Flitz is more than enough to give you fantastic looking glass. If you want to take the next step, then that would be gauzy, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. So it was only a few minutes, and then I plucked the base out of the Flitz and gave it a good wash. If you leave it in that calcium rust stuff too long, it'll start to blacken, and that's not a good thing. It's going to be a real headache. So just make sure you don't leave it in there longer than you need to. You know, let it do its thing, let it get the job done, and then get it to the sink and get it washed up. Now, the base may not be perfect yet. Okay, that's fine. Now we're going to hit it up with the brass bristle brush. After that, if we want even more, then we can use some Flitz polish and our rotary tool and shine it up even more. Now, you'll notice I have left the old wheels on at this point, and that was simply to protect the axle ends, okay? This does not have hubs, so I didn't need to protect them. I was just trying to protect the axles. But now that I've got the base all done and shined up, I do want to get these old wheels off and out of the way. It's going to make it a little easier for me to put a sealant on it and protect it. So I'm using some side cutters, and I'm just chewing away at these wheels. I'm trying to be really, really careful around these axles because I'm counting on them to hold the new wheels using hot swap hubs. So I'm going carefully, I'm nibbling away the wheels, and going to do that to all four of them until I have fresh, naked axles. Okay, so with all the old wheels removed, now I can snap on the hot swap hubs, and I use a pair of needle nose pliers, and I grab the hubs by the two flat sides, and I squeeze pretty hard because these things slip around in the needle nose pliers, so you got to squeeze down pretty hard. And all I'm trying to do here at first is just catch the corner onto the axle, and then I use my fingers and pop it on the rest of the way. So I'll go around, I'll do that to all four axles, and then we're going to pause before we put the wheels on. So I've got the old wheels cut off, I've got the hot swap hubs on, and I've noticed there's some areas where I couldn't really brush it out very well, and so I'm just going to hit it one more time to make sure the base is to my liking before I move on. Okay, I've got the base just how I want it, and now it's time to protect it, and for that I'm going to use the Renaissance wax. The Renaissance wax is a museum-grade crystalline wax, and it's designed to keep things from oxidizing. So you smear it on with your finger, and you really work it in. If you need to, you can use a little brush or something, and just really kind of get it in at all the nooks and crannies. Then you buff it off. It's gone, you don't see it, but it's left behind a residual sealing layer, and that's going to keep this piece from oxidizing on us again. All right, once I have everything protected with the Ren wax, I'm going to go ahead and just buff it off, and I like to use like a microfiber towel so that the little lumpy fibers get up into all the nooks and crannies, and I just kind of start by rubbing it back and forth. Sometimes it will catch, and sometimes you kind of need to just get a finger wrapped in a towel in there. You have to work it, but basically just shine the whole thing up, remove any residual, and you're in business. All right, so it's been a few hours, and I've gone ahead and plucked the body out of the stripper, and I took it to the sink, gave it a really good wash, and now I'm just going to dry it up, and we can get a look and see what we have to work with. So this casting had a few little anomalies in it, especially around the wheel wells that I didn't like, so I'm going to need to pay attention to those. I'm going to dry it, make sure I get all the stripper off of it. As far as any toning or anything like that, it doesn't matter here because this is going to get an opaque white paint job. This is going to be a straight resto, except it's going to get, red line wheels on it. So it's going to get the opaque white paint job, so I don't really need to worry about any of that. I'll brass bristle brush the entire thing to make sure I'm getting off any residual little flecks of paint, and just to kind of give myself an idea of what I need to pay attention to here. So as I mentioned, there was a few things that I didn't like in the casting, especially around the wheel wells. There was like these little nubs that I don't know what they were, but I needed to get rid of them. So I got my little file, and I'm going to file those little nubs away out of the wheel wells, and just dress up a little bit of the back of the airfoil at the back because it's a little chewed up from play wear. But not a lot to do here. Just a little bit of cleanup, and then we can go ahead and head over to the paint booth. As I do with almost all the castings that I paint opaque, I'm going to start out with some Tamiya Fine Primer. Now, normally, I don't like to put white over white because it makes it really hard for me to see where I've painted and whatnot. But if I put it over gray, it makes it a lot harder for me to get that really brilliant white that I'm shooting for. I want this to be as white as the driven snow. So I'm using white Tamiya Fine Primer, putting a coat down, and then I'll let that dry while I get everything else ready. So the Redline shop sells a whole collection of opaque colored paints, and you've seen me use them here before. This is their opaque white paint, and it should really work out nice. So we're going to lay this down. We've mixed it up with a little bit of hardener, and we're going to lay it down the way I normally do with a tack coat and then some medium coats and then a final nice wet coat to give this a really beautiful glossy finish. Now, that's not going to be the end of it, but because it's getting so many decals, I really need to make sure that this body is smooth and glossy, and it will take the decals wonderfully. So I let the paint dry for about 24 hours. 4 to 6 hours of that was spent on my little heating lamp to really make sure that this was cured. And during that time, I just busied myself with other things, including cutting out all the decals that I got from Second Chance Redline. These are really well done, beautiful, and they're making me not hate them, okay? They really are. I'm thinking these are going to look amazing on this brilliant, brilliant white paint. So that's the hope. So we're going to go ahead and put these water slide decals on. So I start out by dipping one of the decals into the water and letting it sit. And then I'm just using my little brush to dot on little bits of wetness on the hood, okay? I want little spots of water there. I don't want this big sheet of water because the decal won't sit down. I want just enough so that if I need to move the decal, it will move. Once I've done that, I can go ahead and slide the decal off the backing paper and onto the car. And then using my favorite decaling tool of all, a toothpick, I can go ahead and nudge the decal into the perfect position. My first impression is this looks amazing, okay? Um, I don't know where the difference is, whether it's he chose a better red and better blue, or the white is better, or all of the above, but it's looking pretty amazing. Now, the hood does have some contours and things like that, and so I'm going to need to use some Walthers, and I'm going to brush this all over the decal to make sure that it will settle down into all the nooks and crannies. And you may have to do this more than once, but just kind of brush it on and let it do its thing. And then when you go to look at it the next time, if it's not perfectly settled in, just do it again. Do it as many times as you need to until the decal is really in there. But we'll go ahead and we'll rinse and repeat, as they say, by going ahead and putting the decals on the hood, on the back of the car, and on both sides. So, what would a Fat Guy Productions project be without a headache, especially when we're talking about a Porsche? I have let the decals thoroughly dry, and I'm getting ready to clear coat the car. And this is going to seal all those decals in it and give it that amazing deep wet look shine that I love so much. But I'm going to end up having a problem with it. Anyhow, we'll talk about that when we get there. For now, I'm going to mix up the clear coat with some hardener and lay it down. And pay attention right here. This is the mistake here. I'm putting way too much hardener in it. Okay, so look, I've told you about the pinholes I've gotten on some of these decal cars. And I really believe it's an issue with the decals and the hardener. I put a lot of hardener in here today. I don't know why. Okay, so my normal mix, and I don't measure anything. I do it by eye, but my normal mix would be about 2 parts clear coat to 1 part hardener, maybe 3 to 1. Okay? Ever since I started having pinhole problems over these bigger decals, I've cut that hardener back to, maybe 5 to 10 drops total of hardener. I almost think maybe I should just leave the hardener out completely, but I normally do just drops for this coat. And then I change the way I apply the clear coat over these decals too. But I don't think that really is the problem. I think it's the hardener. So I noticed that I put way more hardener into this clear. And it was something I noticed after the problem arose. I didn't really notice it at the time. But thinking back about it, I thought to myself, I put a lot of hardener in there. And that just only solidifies my belief that the hardener is why I get the pinholes. So, yeah, I'm going to put the clear coat on, and I'm going to use my new modified way of doing that, which is I start with a tack coat, a very light, sticky coat that's almost dry before I get to the next things, but I don't ever really stop applying the clear coat. As soon as that tack coat is down, I'm back putting on wet coats. I don't even go to medium coats. I go right to wet coats after the tack coat. And I keep putting it on until I have the look that I'm after, and then that's where I stop. Well, so I did that again here today, and I started getting pinholes. I got a pinhole in the roof. I got a horrible one in the driver's door. I got a little dimple in the hood of the car. And I was like, oh, man. Now, I didn't have more decals. I didn't want to strip this. So I let it dry. And then after the drying, then I had a plan that I would use to try to fix this problem. But yeah, so I think it's the hardener. And anyhow, yeah, I got dimples. And I'll show you a picture of them right here. So there's only 2 ways to fix this. And the first way is to strip the thing back down, repaint it, redecal it, and re-clear coat it. I don't want to do that, especially because I don't have another pair of decals. So I'm going to use the second method, which is I'm going to sand away the clear coat. Well, not away, sand it down, smooth it out. So I'm using sanding sponges. I'm going to start with a 600 grit, and then I thought I would go to 1,000, but I'm going to skip right over to 3,000. So I'm going to wet sand the anomalies, being really, really careful, especially around an edge or anything like that. I'm going to sand the roof, the hood, the driver's door, and I'm going to sand the left door just because I want it to match the right door in case there's any differentiation after I put the new clear coat on it. So I'm just going to really be gentle here, just to kind of smooth out the pinholes so that the new clear coat can do its job and fill and smooth everything out. All right, the casting is dry, and I have mixed the clear coat using just drops of hardener, and I applied it in my normal fashion here, and everything came out great. I dodged a bullet here, and I'm super grateful. And frankly, here's just a little look at it, but I think it's looking amazing. Really, the clear on the white and these decals, it really just all pops. Okay, so I did indeed dip the glass, not the entire piece, just the glass part of the interior. I dipped that in gauzy, let it dry, and now everything is ready to go, and I can go ahead and put this car back together. Again, it's going to be pretty easy. It's just the interior slash glass piece, the base and the body, a couple screws, and we're done. And I got to be honest with you. This car might single-handedly be selling me on flying colors because I think this is really, really beautiful. All right, there it is, my flying colors Porsche 911. And I got to tell you, okay, first of all, I've always liked the 911 of this era, okay? I think it's a great look. It's not me. I'm a muscle car guy, okay? But I loved the look of this car, and I get it, okay? I really do. Second, let me pick it up again. This could really sell me on flying colors because look at that. When it's done right, and you have that beautiful white paint and the gloss clear just making this thing gleam like a penny over these decals, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. I love the way this came out. And maybe it's going to make me do more flying colored cars. I just don't know. Put in the comments if you'd like to see more flying colors, because I might listen to you. I gotta tell you, I love the way this came out. I really do. I hope you loved the video as much as I love the casting, and if you did, please give this video a giant thumbs up, click subscribe, and don't forget to click the notification bell so you never miss one of my videos. As always, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below, especially if you'd like to see more flying color videos. All right, that's going to do it for today. I'm going to get out of here. I hope today is amazingly, wonderfully, stupendously great. Until next time, this is Paul from Fat Guy Productions saying, be good.